So there's been some exciting developments in the world of PowerPC Macs recently because somebody was successfully able to port Windows NT 4.0 to a handful of these systems, and of course we're going to be checking that out today. I've received a few emails from you guys asking me if this was something I was going to cover, and the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, this is something right up this channel's alley. Now, some of you may know that there actually was an official port of Windows NT to PowerPC back in the 1990s. It was a Microsoft-sanctioned thing, but that was only compatible with systems that made use of the PowerPC reference platform, which Apple's Power Macs did not. So you had a few systems from IBM and Motorola that could run that version of Windows NT, but up until now, it was not possible to get Windows NT running on Power Macs from Apple. Now, full disclosure, I have not done this before. I'm going into this completely blind. That's actually why I have two Power Mac systems up here, because just in case something goes wrong with one, we have a backup system that we can use. But before we can start the installation, we got to gather a few files. Well, it's actually just a single zip file that you can get on the download page for the Macintosh project here on GitHub. A very clever name, I have to say. As of filming, the latest release is 0.03 that was released on July 15th. And yeah, it just gives you a little bit of information about it, tells you what systems that it's currently compatible with, and how you can go about installing the operating system on one of those systems, and also known issues. The author just clearly says right here, if you're looking for a stable operating system, this is not it. Expect bug checks, expect graphical setup to fail and restart because of bug checks, etc. So yeah, it also mentions dual booting down here, which we're not going to attempt to do that today. I figured we would just keep things as simple as possible. One thing I do want to mention here is at the very bottom, under acknowledgements, it says that the ELF loader and make files were adapted from the homebrew channel, which I think is pretty cool. So yeah, I am fully expecting to run into issues with this, as I said earlier, but I'm going to hope that we don't. So once you download everything, you'll extract the zip file and get these two files right here, and you want to just burn this ISO image to a CD. And here's what it looks like when everything's burned to a CD. Now, this is not the operating system. You still need to have a Windows NT CD to go through the installation process, but we're going to boot from this first on the system, then we have to configure a few things from there, partition the hard drive, all of that stuff, and then put in the Windows NT installation CD and boot from it. So we're going to try this out on the iMac G3 first and see how well we do. Well, I don't think that worked. That is booting right from the hard drive, isn't it? Yep. Oh, this disk is unreadable by the computer. Isn't that great? Alright, well, I got some good news and I got some bad news. The good news is, as you can see, we have booted up off of a different CD. The reason why we had trouble with that original one that I tried is because Macs from this era just have this weird finicky thing when trying to read off of CDs that you've burned yourself. Alright, so I just want to quickly clarify here that this actually doesn't really have anything to do with Macs from this era, but is instead just CD drives in general from this era, because you had some of them that were not capable of reading burned CDs that you would create yourself, or at least some of them, but they're totally capable of reading factory pressed CDs, like this copy of Halo Combat Evolved for Macintosh. I can put this into the G3, it shows up just fine on the desktop, and I can install the program with no issues. But I put in this CDR that I made myself, and it shows up as unrecognizable. Now, when this happens, one of the first things people suggest is to try burning this disk at a lower speed. I did that. In this case, it didn't make a difference at all. What actually worked for me is using an entirely different disk, in this case, one of my rewritable CDs, which I tend to have trouble getting to work on older computers, but in this case, it worked just fine, and I attribute that to a different die being used in the CD. So you see this one is much darker. If I flip this one around here, you see how it's lighter? So a different die was used in creating this disk, and the drive is able to read it better. So I just want to throw this out there for anybody who maybe didn't know this, that if you do have an old computer that's not really reading any disks that you've burned yourself, don't write off the drive just yet. Try to, burn the image at a lower speed, or try using a disk made with a different die, or, just use a piece of software like this here to verify that it works. However, in this case, as you're going to see shortly, none of this matters at all, because the bad news is we can't actually use the USB keyboard here to navigate around in this menu, you see nothing happens, and that's because there aren't actually any USB drivers currently, as of me filming this video, for this port of Windows NT 4.0. And if you didn't know, these iMac G3s were famous, or rather infamous might be a better word, when they came out, in ditching ADB in favor of USB as standard. So you might be saying, okay, well then, if this doesn't have an ADB port, why was it listed on the GitHub page as a compatible system? Well, it's actually possible to add an ADB port back to these systems with a little bit of know-how, and then you can plug in an ADB keyboard and navigate through this menu and use Windows NT just fine. I actually saw a Reddit post where somebody had successfully done that. And that's why that these tray loader G3s are listed as compatible, but the slot loader ones are not, because from my understanding, you can't add an ADB port back to those things. And while this sounds like a just delightfully pointless thing to do on this computer, because there's really like no other benefit to it that I can imagine other than just getting Windows NT to work on this system, or, you know, plugging a bunch of ADB devices into it for whatever reason. But I've got plenty of other Macs that I can do that with, and one of those is the Power Mac G3 Blue and White. However, I ran into just a bunch of problems getting this computer to boot from the CD, or well, actually not boot from the CD. It did that most of the time, but to get it to recognize the hard drive when it would boot from the CD, it's supposed to show it in that menu there when you can go through and select all those options, but it wasn't. Now, initially I tried just reconfiguring the hard drive and the CD drive and how they were connected to the system, but in doing that, I actually ended up bending a pin on the factory CD-ROM drive. You might be able to see it, that top left one there. Yeah, so I did that because, you know, the CD drive, the way it's mounted in here, is there's this really tiny crammed space between the back of the CD drive and the power supply, and I kept having to reach in there to unplug the IDE connector and plug a different one in, and I assume in doing that I just ended up bending one of the pins. So that's why we have this replacement CD drive here until I can repair the original one. Now, I was eventually able to get it to recognize the hard drive in that menu, and I discovered after looking at the GitHub issues page for this project that you actually have to have both of these drives daisy-chained together and plugged into the far right IDE connector on the motherboard, not the one that's marked Ultra ATA where you would normally plug the hard drive into. This system originally had an IDE cable plugged into here that ran underneath the motherboard, out here, and up to the drive base here where it plugged into the CD-ROM drive. So you have to unplug that and then plug in an IDE cable that runs to both the hard drive and the CD-ROM. This computer originally used a SCSI drive for its main storage device, but as far as I know, those are not compatible with this project in its current state, so we can't even use that. Now, you'll have to excuse the way I've got all this set up. I just have not mounted these drives back in properly because I want to, you know, get this installed first before I do that, just to make sure I don't have to unplug anything again. But one other thing you have to do is make sure that the jumpers on both of these drives are set to cable select. However, at this point, I experienced another problem because when I would boot off of the CD-ROM drive and get to that menu, I couldn't actually navigate around in it with the arrow keys on the ADB keyboard here. The entire system would just lock up, and I couldn't even hold down the power button on the front of the computer to turn it off. I had to unplug it from the wall. So then I went back to the GitHub issues page, and not finding anybody else who was talking about this problem, I made a post myself, and the developer responded and said that there are two workarounds to this problem. Number one is to boot into open firmware before you start up off the CD, and number two is to use a USB keyboard to boot up off the CD during startup, and then the ADB keyboard should work fine while navigating through that menu. And I've tried that multiple times now, and I can confirm that it works on my system here. The developer also very graciously compiled a test build that was supposed to fix this issue, but on my system here, it still does the exact same thing. So yeah, I just am using the latest build. Oh, and that's the other thing. In between these two clips, the developer actually released a new version, 0.04, that fixes some other issues that a bunch of other people were having when you actually start the NT setup process that I haven't even been able to get to yet. So, with all that out of the way, we are now going to plug this computer back in, start it up, and see if we can configure the hard drive for a Windows NT installation and actually get this operating system installed. So we're starting up. I'm holding down the C key on the USB keyboard, and now we can navigate through the menu. Look at that. So we are going to set the USB keyboard aside because we don't need that for anything, I think, from here on out. And we're going to go to Run Firmware Setup. We're going to repartition the disk for NT installation, and we're going to select our hard drive there. And right here, it's going to ask you to enter the size of the NT operating system partition. The maximum we can do is 8030 megabytes, and this is regardless of the actual size of your hard drive. And now we could create a Mac partition if we wanted to like dual boot Windows NT and Mac OS 9 or Mac OS 10. We're not going to do that as of now, so we're just going to finish partitioning and install. And it'll give you a confirmation screen here. It'll say all data on disk will be lost, and we're going to say yes. And there we go. Successfully written partition tables and installed ARC firmware. Repartition drive HT00 for NT successfully. We're going to press any key to restart. Now we can see that our drivers.img RAM disk is loaded, so that's great. If this was not loaded, you would have to go into Run Firmware Setup, and I believe the option is, load driver RAM disk, because that's where you're actually going to pull the drivers from when you start the NT setup process. So at this point, we can swap disks and put in the NT setup disk that I've burned here. This is an upgrade copy, you see, so we can't actually use that one, so I just had to download another copy. And it actually took me a little while to find this because I've burned like 40 million CDs during this process and forgot to mark on that one. But now we're going to go up to run a program, and we're going to type cd:/ppc/setup LDR and hit enter. Okay, file or device does not exist. Let me make sure I spelled that right. All right, second time's the charm. So here is Windows NT setup running on a Power Macintosh G3, which is just really incredible to see. Now, from this point, it's going to ask you to select a computer type from the following list, and we're going to choose Other because we have a device support disk provided by our computer manufacturer. So we'll select Other. Please insert the disk into drive A. I believe we just hit enter, and there we go. We're going to choose Apple Power Macintosh G3. And now it begins loading files, so check this out. Now we do get another error about mass storage devices not being found, so we're going to hit S to specify an additional device. We're going to choose Other from the list, hit enter again, and we have to load both of these according to the guide on GitHub, so we're going to load that one, and then specify an additional device, Other, yes, go down to Power Mac General, HID, and Storage, and then continue. Next, it will complain about the video adapter. So again, we do that, select Open Firmware Frame Buffer. It's the only one there, so that's pretty easy. Let it load that in. And we get to the boot screen here. And here is setup once again. So this is where we actually hit enter. And now it has recognized the following mass storage devices. So we'll hit enter. We will agree to the license terms. Is there not page down on this keyboard? What is page down? Yeah, there's not. This is an Apple IIGS ADB keyboard. I don't think there's page down on here. What corresponds to page down? I'm hitting like everything on the numpad here. That is hilarious. Am I actually going to have to go through this entire thing again because this keyboard doesn't have a page down key? Well, luckily for us, we've got an old Apple design keyboard here to save the day, which has a more modern layout with a page down key. So let's see if I can just swap the ADB keyboard that is plugged into the system. And the lights came on the keyboard, but I'm hitting page down, and nothing's happening. So I think we may have to go through this entire setup again. And now we can hit page down. Look at that. I've never been more excited to have a page down key on a keyboard. So we're going to press F8 to agree. And we are going to... Do we have to do anything about keyboard or pointing device? We actually don't have a mouse plugged in right now. We do. We have to go to keyboard and change this to the other option here, XTAT or enhanced keyboard. And then change pointing device to no mouse or other pointing device. Then we'll hit enter. We select the C drive here. Now, the guide says that if you choose to create an NT partition of size 2 gigabytes or less, it must be formatted. If you choose to create an NT partition over 2 gigabytes in size, check disk will find errors and require a reboot. Boot your Power Mac from the ARC firmware CD again and follow the steps to boot NT4 text setup again. So I believe we can just leave current file system intact, WinNT, and hit enter. Okay, it's performed maintenance on your hard disks that require a reboot to take effect. So now we have to restart, and I think we just have to boot from setup again. So I need to put back in the other disk because it's not going to be able to boot from that one. And then I guess we just run that program again. Setup LDR, if I can spell right. Oh yeah, it would help if I put in the frickin' disk. And I don't know if this is gonna like take us back to the beginning here. I mean, is this, I mean, this might just be detecting drivers and everything again. Maybe we do have to format? It says, it doesn't say specifically on the guide that, it says choose the C drive from the partition list. If you choose to create an NT partition of size 2 gigabytes or less, it must be formatted. If you want to create an NT partition of over 2 gigabytes in size, check disk will find errors and require a reboot. And then it just says reboot, put the ARC firmware CD back in, and follow the steps to boot NT4 text setup. So, I guess we'll just, go through here. We'll select both of these. And select the open firmware frame buffer. Get back to the boot screen. And yeah, we're just at the beginning again. So, okay, this time I'm going to try formatting. So change keyboard to that, change pointing device to that, and so let's say format the partition using the NTFS file system. Press F. It is too large. You must return to the previous screen, select or create a smaller partition. Okay, so maybe we shouldn't have made it the full maximum size. So let's go back. I guess we can just delete this partition. Create partition. Let's just do 2000. Format the partition. There we go. And now it starts copying files. All right. Okay, this portion of setup has completed successfully. So we're going to restart and setup will continue. So I believe at this point, I'm going to try to quickly, well, I'm not going to be able to do this in time anyway, but I'm going to swap back over to the boot disk. Because, yeah, you see it's still not detecting a bootable partition on the hard drive. So we go in here, and I think we should have an option to just boot from, start Windows NT Workstation version 4.0. So you have to boot off of the CD every single time, from my understanding. The system's just not going to boot off the hard drive, by itself. So we're back at the boot screen, and then, oh yeah, you know what? I should plug in a mouse, shouldn't I? Yeah. Okay, so it's running check disk here, and this is where, if it's a partition over 2 gigs in size, check disk will find errors and restart, which I actually wasn't looking at the screen. I was looking off screen at the tutorial guide, so yeah, it just restarted, so let's hope that it works. But I am going to plug in this ADB mouse, but I have a feeling that it's going to be too late for it to recognize it. So it does have this auto boot feature, which is nice. So I didn't even hold down C at that point. I just, it tried to boot from the hard drive. We got the question mark, but then the CD drive spun up and it booted from that, and then it just automatically selected the first option after 3 seconds. So that's great. You can just leave that disk in the drive. You don't have to do anything to have it boot into Windows NT. Okay, it looks like it's running. Oh, and there we go. Yeah. Now let's see. Does the mouse work? The mouse works. Oh my gosh. Holy cow. So, okay, now we got to put back in the NT Workstation disk. And we'll hit OK. And OK. And there we go. This is just so freaking cool, especially after all the stuff I've been going through to get this working. Although, we're not done yet. I'm not going to jinx anything. But I think at this point we can just go through NT setup like on any other system. So let's go to custom here. We'll put in my name, if I can spell my own name right. And computer name, we're going to call this PowerMac-G3 because that sounds so cool. We don't need an admin password. We don't need an emergency repair disk. And so we've got, you know, about 2 gigabytes of available space. So can we just grab everything here? Yeah, all right. So we'll hit next, and we'll install. This is all networking stuff. I don't actually know if networking is supported at this point. Well, there's no mention of it on the page, and I couldn't find any issues with the word network or internet in them, so we're just gonna have it, yeah, wired to the network and see if maybe it works, maybe it won't. Although, did it hang here? I think, I wonder if we just waited too long. I mean, it's not, the system is not hung, it's, you know, I can still move the mouse around, but yeah, like it's not responding to my mouse clicks or hitting enter on the keyboard. So let's just give it a moment here and see if it starts back up. Alright, well, it's been a couple minutes here and we still have gotten nowhere. We got no drive activity at all. I wonder if selecting this network option caused it to kind of panic here, but let's see if I can hold down the power button to turn it off. And yeah, so now we unfortunately have an incomplete installation on the drive, so I wonder how it's going to handle that. And it looks like it's just going to restart setup. Okay, so we got to this screen, but we don't have... I guess we'd have to manually select a network adapter, and I don't know which one that we even would use in here. Oh, and it just blue screened. Okay, so I guess we can't do the network stuff. Alright, no, we don't want to connect this computer to a network. Finish. And we got a stop code again. Cancel state in completed IRP. So according to Microsoft, this error code indicates that an IO request packet, or IRP, was completed and then was subsequently canceled. The GitHub page, nobody's talking about this in the issues section. From what I can see, if we go back to the main page here, I mean, I know you guys can't see any of this, but IRP, nothing shows up. Under known issues, nothing about currently implemented drivers or bare minimum. Yeah, nothing about that in here. So I wonder, I mean, it did get through setup, but it might have had a few things to do after we hit finish. So I have a feeling it's just going to restart setup again. I don't know if maybe we could, you know, change some options around, perhaps go with a typical setup. Or you know what, maybe we shouldn't have, because I'm saying IO, right? Maybe we're not supposed to have the mouse plugged in at this point. Because yeah, it indicates that an IO request packet was completed and then was subsequently canceled. I'm wondering if maybe we unplug the mouse. Try to do that again. Maybe we'll have better results. Let's see. Oh, you know what I just thought of? I still have the USB keyboard plugged in. That could also be the problem. I'm going to unplug that. And we'll hit OK here. You know, that is probably a more probable reason why it crashed with an IO error. Just a thought. But now we don't have a mouse or the USB keyboard plugged in, so we got to do everything by keyboard here. Not going to set a password. No. We'll go and get all of this. Do we have all communication stuff? Yes. Alright, no, we don't want to connect to a network. Finish setup. Configuring computer to run Windows NT, and we got... Okay, we have a different one this time. IRQL not less or equal. Now, we did have the USB keyboard plugged in, and, you know, then we unplugged it after setup started, so... And I don't think I need it to boot up off the CD-ROM again because it automatically started last time. So I'm just going to leave the USB keyboard unplugged, leave the ADB mouse unplugged, and try to go through setup for a 5th time. Oh, okay. We got further along. Let's see if it crashes again. Alright, it took a few minutes to get to this screen here, but we're going to select our time zone. We'll just... you know what? We'll just leave it. Yeah, Berlin. That's fine. Automatically adjust clock for daylight savings. Sure. And it found the following video adapter in your machine. I assume that's open firmware buffer compatible display adapter. What are our options? Nothing for color palette aside from true color, and we can't actually change the resolution at this point. So we'll just leave that at the default. Oh no, we got another error. This is that IRQL not less or equal again. So... Okay, now it did copy files to the hard drive. I guess we'll have to restart once again. Oh, and look at that. We're at the desktop. And we got... Okay, so we did start up from the hard drive, I believe. But yeah, now we're getting this error, this stop code, just from trying to log in. Okay, so after yet another restart, we're here at the Control-Alt-Delete screen. So let's try to press Control-Alt-Delete and log into the administrator account. And that, oh my gosh, guys, we're here on the desktop. Let's frickin' go. So yeah, I still don't have the ADB mouse plugged in, and I don't think that plugging it in now is going to allow the system to recognize it. So we may have to restart again, but let's just try it here just for the heck of it. Yeah, we got nothing. So we are going to have to restart once more. I didn't hear a startup sound or anything. Oh, and the mouse sensitivity is like way low. Let's go into settings and change that. So, oh yeah, and look at me, I'm holding down. Oh, that still works. Yeah, I was like holding down the mouse button thinking I was on like an Apple computer, which, I mean, I am, so you can't really blame me for that. But yeah, you know, it still works here in Windows. You can hold down on start and go up to an option, release the mouse button, and it brings up that item. So cool. Let's go into sounds here and see. Yeah, we don't even get the play option, so I'm guessing we don't have sound working, which is not a huge deal. Oh yeah, device manager is not going to be in here. It's going to be in... Oh gosh, I got to really change this mouse setting. Let's go to motion. Turn up the pointer speed. Actually, we got to go like all the way up. That's still like... That's still kind of slow. But I mean, hey, it's better. So, okay. We'll hit OK. Go to devices here. I'm almost afraid to start one of these because I have a feeling that like it might just cause the system to blue screen. But do we have anything that's like audio? No. How about sound? I kind of wish we had like more details than just the name of a device, like kind of a cryptic name here. I'm gonna search on the GitHub page just to see. Sound is not mentioned anywhere, so my guess is it just doesn't work. And we have CD audio, and I guess we can start that. Could not start the service on Power Mac G3. System cannot find the device specified. Now that is CD audio, and not just like the regular audio service, but like I said, we don't have anything in here. Unless one of these things is actually for the audio, which it very well could be, but like I'm just taking a glance at this stuff. I don't see... Yeah, I think we just don't have a sound driver loaded. So, yeah, I'm curious if we go into display here, if we can change any more resolution settings, which we cannot, so these are exactly the same. Now, in system here, it identifies itself as a Power Macintosh with 1,048,576 kilobytes of RAM, which is about 1 gigabyte of RAM, which I believe is what this system has. I think we have, yeah, 4 256 meg sticks in it. So that's cool. We've got, you know, all your standard Windows NT preferences. I mean, it's Windows NT, just running on a frickin' Power Mac G3, which, I mean, I know... I've probably said that numerous times throughout this video. You guys know that's what we've been doing this entire time, but to be able to finally get this working is super cool. And I mean, I don't really know what I'm going to use this for, but it's super cool. The fact that this can be done now is just really awesome. So I really got to give props to the developer for putting in this work and for, you know, helping a bunch of people, because there's been a lot of talk in that issues section on the GitHub page, and the dev has been in there like answering people's questions and providing various test builds to try to solve these problems. And that's just super awesome. So yeah, there is one more thing that we like to do whenever we install Windows on this channel. You guys know it. It's the Half-Life rule. We've got Half-Life here because this works on Windows NT 4.0. It does detect the CD drive, right? I haven't even checked that. Yeah, we go into my computer. There it is. It also shows a floppy drive, interestingly enough, which we don't even have hooked up in here. We also have a C and a D drive. So that's the C drive. What is the D drive? Is this still that, is this that RAM disk? I think it might be. We've got parallel equals XBO, 0 bytes, and we have this OS and WinNT 4.0 folder with nothing in it. So this very well might be that RAM drive, but our C drive here is, you know, our Windows installation. So we got WinNT, got all this stuff in here, you know, that is in here. And yeah, we got our program files, our temp folder, and then we've got our E drive here. We're going to run this. The image file E is valid, but is for a machine type other than the current machine. Oh yeah, of course. This isn't going to work because this is an entirely different hardware platform. We're trying to run this on a PowerPC system. There's no way that's going to work. Doesn't matter what operating system we're running. All right, I looked it up. There actually was a PowerPC port of Half-Life 1. It was like incomplete, but it's on Macintosh repository because it's for OS X, right? That makes total sense. If you were going to write software for PowerPC that you wanted like people to actually use, you were going to write it for Mac OS because that was, you know, that's the platform that most people think of when they think of systems that run on PowerPC. So yeah, I'm really trying to think of like any PowerPC software that was compiled for Windows NT. I did find this blog post that I'll link down below of somebody just trying the PowerPC port of NT on a system, you know, one of the PowerPC reference platform systems that it was meant to run on. And they say that one software package available for PowerPC is the Microsoft Visual C++ development system. Apparently there were rumors of Microsoft Office coming to PowerPC, but this may have not reached public release, according to this blog. Oh, well look at that. It says that 16-bit x86 applications will run in emulation. Well, with that in mind, I do have this copy of Doom 2, so why don't we pop that in and see if we can get it running. Of course, having no sound is going to really detract from the experience, but it would be pretty cool if we can get it running. So there we go. We'll open up the drive and we'll just run the install script here. We're going to install 2C, Doom 2, yes, create. All right, and will it detect the mouse? That will, that'll be interesting. No music, no sound effects, unfortunately. And yeah, let's save parameters and launch Doom 2. And there we go. It is running, of course, in a window here. Now, I don't believe we can, like, can we exit into, like, DOS mode? I don't think that we can. You see, I mean, we have CMD on here, but there's not, yeah, like, there's not, like, an MS-DOS mode or anything, which, you know, this is NT-based, so, I mean, that makes sense. But, yeah, like, we're gonna have to just run CMD, not CMD with a slash there, and we can just go into Doom 2, look at me going to type ls, dir, and what is it, just doom2.exe, yeah, Doom 2. I think we can do, can we do Alt-Enter, though, to, no, we can't do that to make it full screen. Control-Enter, no, that's unfortunate. But, I mean, it does run here. We can maximize the window. I wonder if there's, let's see, anything in here, edit, properties. Yeah, so we don't have any way of making this window full screen. Well, hey, the age-old question, can it run Doom? Yeah, just, it is pretty laggy, but it's certainly playable. Not the lowest frame rate that I've experienced with Doom on a system on this channel, certainly. But, you know, it could certainly run far better if this was running, you know, natively, instead of through a emulation layer. But there you go. So yeah, that's Doom 2. So this is capable of running 16-bit Windows applications through that emulation layer, but not 32-bit ones, which is unfortunate. However, this is where things get pretty interesting because I came across a piece of software called Soft Windows 32 from Motorola. Now, if you remember earlier on in this video, I mentioned that Motorola was one of the PC manufacturers that had systems built to the PowerPC reference platform specifications that could run the Windows NT 4.0 port to PowerPC. Well, it turns out that they released an emulator of their own that was capable of running 32-bit Windows applications compiled for x86 under Windows NT for PowerPC, you know, for use on their hardware. This is a very, like, niche application with a very specific target audience, but if it works under this system, I mean, that'll be pretty freaking awesome. So I'm going to pop it in, and we'll see if we can get Half-Life to run under it. So we're going to close out of our command prompt here, and we'll wait for the disk to read. All right, here's the splash screen. Let's just go to more information to see what we got. So yeah, Win32 x86 emulation on PowerPC version 1.01. from October 18th, 96. So we got some installation options. It says down here, machine must be rebooted for WX86 emulation to become active. Okay, limitations. Some Win32x86 application setups are initiated by a Win16 executable. This is something we have encountered in previous videos on this channel, but it says it determines the machine type by looking at the environment variable, processor architecture, and processor identifier. If they are not set as follows, they complain about an incorrect version of Windows and refuse to install. So there is a workaround, okay. So that's good to know. We may refer back to this a little bit later on, but let's see if the thing even installs, because this may not even work. So we'll hit OK, and there we go. Alright, looks like it installed, so we have to restart. We will absolutely do that, although first I'm going to swap CDs again to put in the boot disk. Well, we're back. Let's log in. I wonder how, like, does it just drop an application in here? It doesn't look like it, so I guess it's just running in the background. Well, let's try to pop back in the Half-Life disk and see if we can just run the installer. Whoa, okay! Let's frickin' go. Okay, well, hang on a second. Well, the auto run worked. But yeah, setup is still complaining about it needs a different version of Windows. Check to make sure you are running the setup on the Windows platform for which it is intended. Now, is there a way... Does it add anything in properties here? No. And that's funny, it says 16-bit setup launcher. So maybe the setup program is 16-bit. It's still just not running though. But here's the thing, I do have that that copy of Half-Life that's already like installed, you know, like it's just got all the files extracted and it has that no CD crack. So I'm gonna pop that disk in and maybe we can get it to run from there. But yeah, I'm curious like where the settings are for this. Is it in control panel here? Does it just add something? Add or remove programs. Okay, well it shows up in there. Alright, so we're gonna go into there. We're just gonna copy this folder over to, let's just do it to the root of the C drive here. And there we go. So we're gonna hop into that folder and let's just see if we can run hl.exe. Okay, we'll put in a product key. Half-Life requires Service Pack 3 or above. Now, we are running NT Service Pack 1. Will WinVerse show that? Yes. So Service Pack 1 we got. I wonder if we can go to Service Pack 3 on this? Do you think that would break anything? I don't know. But the executable runs. So that's good because this is a 32-bit program, so that's not going to happen without that soft Windows 32 emulator. So that is working. But I'm going to see if I can find Windows NT Service Pack 3. I mean, I'm sure I'll be able to find it, but if it'll actually work on here. Let's try that out. Alright, so do you remember how I just said that I wouldn't find an issue finding Service Pack 3 for PowerPC? Well, I did have an issue finding it because according to WinWorld, it doesn't exist. There was not an SP3 release for PowerPC. There was a Service Pack 2 release, so I'm burning that ISO right now. But in the meantime, I want to actually uninstall the soft Windows 32 emulation layer here. I don't know what is going on with the mouse, because I don't want this to conflict with anything. We're going to try the Service Pack 3 installation. Well, first thing, we're going to install Service Pack 2, see if Half-Life maybe works under that, which it probably won't. I mean, it says it needs Service Pack 3, so it probably needs Service Pack 3. But assuming we can get Service Pack 2 installed, we'll try to install Service Pack 3 just for the heck of it. I'm sure it's not going to work, but then I'm going to reinstall soft Windows 32 and see if we can install Service Pack 3 and, you know, run it through the emulation layer to where it might think this is, you know, like an x86 system. Probably is going to screw things up, but, you know, it's worth a try. I mean, I really want to see if we can get further than we've already gotten with Half-Life. So we're going to uninstall this, and sure, we will restart now. Let me just pop back in the boot disk. Alright, so we've got that uninstalled, and just to show you, if we go back into the C drive here, into the Half-Life folder, and try to run hl.exe, it's now going to complain that we don't have the right machine type. So that's pretty cool. That emulation layer does work. But let's go ahead and pop in the Service Pack 2 disk. So we'll hop back into my computer, go in here, and okay, so we opened it up in Internet Explorer here, Install service pack. That's what we want. Welcome to service pack setup. Now, this could completely break the system here. I don't know if this is actually going to work with this whole, setup we have here. This might break something, but I did, this is the reason why I wanted to uninstall the soft Windows 32 emulation layer, because this CD is like a universal binary. This could be run under both PowerPC and x86 systems, and I didn't want the emulation layer making it think it was running under an x86 system and install like the wrong files. So we're going to hit next here, install the service pack. Sure, we'll create an uninstall directory, and we'll finish. And there we go. All right, we're logging back in. So far, so good. And now if we hop into WinVer here, Service Pack 2, there you go. And I just put in the Service Pack 3 disk, and I guarantee you it's going to immediately complain about the architecture. So, yep, it is for a machine type other than the current machine. So, now let's reinstall the soft Windows 32 emulation layer. And we're copying more files, put back in the boot disk, restart, log in, and just for the heck of it, let's hop back into Half-Life here, try to run this again. And, yep, it requires Service Pack 3 or above, not a surprise. So, we're going to pop in the Service Pack 3 disk again, and see if having the emulation layer installed changes anything. Which, if it does, and we're able to install this, we very well might break a bunch of stuff, because you're not supposed to be able to install this under PowerPC. Well, we're getting somewhere, because it immediately came up with an error message last time, so it's loading something. Okay, well, it's just opening up the drive in Explorer. It's taking its time to read the drive here. The drive activity light is on full time. I don't know why all of a sudden it's taking its sweet time here. Alright, well, there's all the files. There's not an auto-run executable. There is that, like, HTML document. But I'm just going to go into CMD here again, go to the E drive, and run, what is it called? SP setup. Okay. It's doing something. System cannot open the device or file specified. Alright, let's try to add the .bat extent, not .at, .bat. System cannot open the device or file specified. Okay, well that's certainly not a good sign. This is the HTML document, right? Because, before it came up just immediately with Service Pack 2, it just came up with the HTML file in IE. It is, like, really taking its sweet time here. It's slowing down. Alright, well, it just opened IE, did not open a document. Is this more of a problem of, like, just this disk being corrupted or something? I mean, it's really, like, it is slowing down. Like, look, even opening this README is, like, I mean, it's taking a while. Let's see if it even opens. Data error. Like, is the drive failing all of a sudden? Let me just pop back in the Motorola soft Windows 32 disk. Nope. It's reading everything just fine. So, it must be the way that ISO was burned. Alright, we got a different disk, and this actually was not burned from an ISO file. This is just an executable just copied over to the disk that we can run on here. So, yeah, we'll just try it, see what happens, it's worth a try. Again, this is, like, definitely a waste of time, but, I just want to know for sure. So let's run it. It is actually extracting files. Of course, this doesn't mean anything, because it could still fail when it actually runs the setup executable. The procedure entry point _all SHL could not be located in the dynamic link library ntdll.dll. Yeah, I'm sure that has something to do with what, with our current setup here. You know what, though? I think we gave this a pretty good effort. I mean, that Motorola software is really freaking awesome, and theoretically, you should be able to run Windows applications compiled for x86, assuming that they were compatible with Windows NT Service Pack 2 or below. This whole project, like I said earlier, is really incredible, and I gotta give props to the developer once again. It was really fun to take a look at, and yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, if you want to see more like it, definitely be sure to give it a a thumbs up, get subscribed, maybe consider becoming a patron or a channel member to get early access to these videos before anybody else. But either way, I just want to thank you all so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video.